A girl holding her feverish baby brother knocks on a rancher's door, her mama's last words echoing in the dusk. On a wind-burned western night, a skinny girl clutching her feverish baby brother knocks on a rancher's door, her mama's last words burning in her ears, a scorched ledger in her bag, and outlaws and crooked law on their trail. They ain't chasing glory, just a place to stay, a chance to keep a promise, and the hope that this time someone won't walk away. Dusk crawled over sagebrush flats with the quiet certainty of a debt coming due. Out past the split-rail fence and the long sigh of dry grass, Mara Lee Quinn trudged, slow and stubborn, boots sinking into the caked mud of a dried-up creek. The boy in her arms, her baby brother Caleb, was small as a cottontail, his breath hot and shallow against her shoulder. The blanket that held him was no thicker than a rag, and her own jacket, once brown, was dusted near white by the day's wind. Behind her, the sun bled out on the horizon, turning the world a color she'd never seen in a dress, somewhere between rust and old memory. She didn't stop to cry. She didn't have the spit for it. What she did have pounded in her ears with every step. Her mama's last words, cracked and iron-heavy. "Find May Whitlow. You find the ranch. She'll keep you. No promises about food or money, only that. She'll keep you." Mara didn't even know if it was true. Maybe May Whitlow was just another name said in the dark to calm a child, a thread spun from hope, but that was all she had left. By the time she reached the ranch house, a clapboard structure long and low, standing alone against the sage, night had set its teeth in. One window glowed orange with firelight. The rest was quiet, save for the sound of wind working at the eaves, and somewhere near the shrill cry of a coyote, hunting for something weaker than itself. Mara's boots stuck in the cold mud as she climbed the steps. She adjusted Caleb, whose cries now sounded more like pleading than protest. Her own hands shook, numb at the tips, the ache running all the way to her shoulders. She knocked, once, then again, harder. For a moment only the wind replied. Then the door creaked open. Standing there, framed by yellow lamplight, was a woman with a rifle resting along her forearm, not aimed, just held like it belonged there. Her hair was the color of wet bark, pulled back neat, eyes dark as new-dug earth. Lines cut deep around her mouth, but nothing about her said old. Mara found her voice small and hoarse. "Ma'am, my mama's gone. She told me to find you, rancher." The woman didn't flinch. She scanned Mara from boots to brow, landing last on Caleb's mottled face. The baby whimpered. For a second, the only sound was the wind tangling through the porch beams. Mara's heart beat so loud she felt sure it'd knock her sideways. The woman's voice, when it came, was level as a carpenter's rule. "What's your name, girl?" "Mara Lee Quinn." "Who was your mama?" "Clara Quinn." Mara swallowed. "She said you'd know." The rifle lowered a fraction. "I knew Clara. Come in before the wind eats you both." Inside, the warmth hit Mara with a force that was almost cruel. The place smelled of wood smoke and coffee grounds. Over the hearth, a kettle steamed, and a battered tin cup hung from a nail. A fire snapped in the grate, sending shadows crawling up the walls. There was a pair of muddy boots by the door, a patchwork coat slung over the back of a cane chair. The woman, May Whitlow, Mara guessed, set the rifle against the wall. She stepped close, not touching, but close enough that Mara could see the faded blue of her work shirt, the red nick along her knuckle. "Is that your brother?" "Yes, ma'am. Caleb, he's sick. Fever." May nodded once, businesslike. She crossed to a sideboard, poured water from a jug into a mug, then knelt, holding it out. "Let him sip if he can. Sit by the fire. Warm up." Mara sank into a chair, keeping Caleb tucked against her. The heat soaked through her bones, loosening something she didn't know had gone tight. For a few minutes neither spoke. Only the fire made a sound, crackling and popping like it had its own opinion about the night. Caleb whimpered, eyes glassy and unfocused. May watched him, her face unreadable. After a time, she fetched a worn quilt from a trunk and draped it over Mara's shoulders. "Rest a bit, supper's gone, but there's bread." "Thank you, ma'am." May shook her head. "Just May." Her voice was softer now. "You're safe here tonight. We'll see about tomorrow." Outside, the wind kept up its song, rattling the windows. Inside, time stretched thin as old rope. Mara stared at the embers, blinking against the sting in her eyes. Caleb stirred, coughed, a dry, hitching sound that made her stomach twist. May crouched down, eye level with Mara. "How long's he been burning?" "Since the creek, maybe before." Mara hesitated. "There's a doctor in Copper Bend, but I didn't know if we'd make it." May set her jaw. "Copper Bend's half a day if the trail's clear." She glanced at the baby, then back at Mara. "You did right coming here. I'll help." A long silence. Mara felt the weight of it settle, a heaviness bigger than the ranch house, bigger than the flats outside. She didn't dare say thank you again. The words seemed too small for the hole in her chest. Then, somewhere in the darkness beyond the window, a horse snorted, close. The two women locked eyes. May moved to the door, hand light on the rifle. "Stay with the boy. Don't open for anyone but me." Mara pressed Caleb close, listening hard. Boots scuffed on the porch. The door rattled once, then went still. Shadows stretched under the sill, long and mean. Mara held her breath, heart thumping. After a minute that felt longer than a mile of bad road, May returned, face grim. "Just the wind," she said, but Mara saw her eyes flick back to the window, to the darkness beyond the glass. She didn't know what lay ahead, only that her mama was gone and the world had turned colder. But in that moment, with the door shut and the fire burning, Mara let herself believe what May had promised. "You're safe here tonight." She closed her eyes. Caleb's tiny hand tangled in her shirt. Behind her, the battered coffee tin tapped softly against the wall with every gust of wind. A promise, or maybe just a reminder. Folks out here didn't give their word easy, but when they did, it was worth more than gold. Morning found sagebrush flats blanketed in the pale hush before sunup, the kind of chill that settles deep in your teeth and makes even the boards of the ranch house creak. Mara hadn't slept much, not really. She dozed off now and then, always half waking at Caleb's coughing or at the groan of wind worrying the window panes. Each time she'd remind herself, "You're inside. The door's bolted. He's breathing." May moved around the house quiet as habit. Boots padded, kettle set to warm on the back of the stove. She didn't ask Mara questions, not about the road or the night, not about the mother who'd sent her here. Instead, she checked Caleb with steady hands, cool rag to his brow, fingers at his neck, a gentle turn to see the whites of his eyes. She frowned, but she didn't say much. "Drink this if you can," May said, holding out a mug of weak tea. "Ain't much, but it's warm." "Thank you," Mara whispered, voice thin as willow bark. The baby's fever hadn't broken. He fussed and squirmed, sometimes crying, sometimes falling into a strange, limp quiet that frightened Mara more than anything. She rocked him, crooning scraps of lullaby her mama used to sing, the tune tattered and half forgotten. The old quilt May had lent her smelled of wood smoke and sunlight, something safe, or close enough. May sat across from her, elbows on knees, gaze fixed on the fire. After a long time, Mara worked up the nerve to speak. "Ma'am, just don't split us up." May looked over, steady as sunrise. For a breath, she didn't answer. Then, "Ain't nobody here to do that. You stay, you keep the boy close. I don't send folks out in the cold." Mara nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. It was a small promise, but it felt bigger than any she'd heard in years. They sat there a while, the quiet broken only by the snap of firewood and the gentle whistle of the kettle. Mara watched May tend the fire, adding logs, shifting embers, moving like a woman who knew how to wait out storms. Time crawled. Caleb's skin felt hotter by the hour. Mara dabbed his forehead with a strip of cool linen. "I think his fever's worse," she whispered. May grunted. "Doctor in Copper Bend's the best I know, but it's half a day and the trail's rough come morning." Mara nodded. She didn't say what she was thinking, that every minute waiting felt like another gamble. She'd carried that boy through bad water and hungry coyotes. She could carry him a few miles more if she had to. A knock sounded sharp from the porch. Not the wind this time, something deliberate. May's eyes went hard. She rose, took the Winchester from the wall, and motioned Mara back into the shadows. The door opened a crack. Framed against the gray light was a young man in a deputy's star, coat dusted, hat pulled low. Wade Sloan, she'd heard the name whispered, over trading posts and in market lines. He was younger than most lawmen, and his eyes darted from the shadows to May's face, always searching, never landing long. "Morning, Miss Whitlow," he drawled, polite but with that edge grown men used when they wanted something. "Heard you had company last night." May leaned her shoulder against the door. "Didn't know word traveled that fast. Was just the wind and a stray calf. Nothing worth your trouble, deputy." Wade tried a smile. "Well, the sheriff's got folks looking for a girl. Small, dark hair, carrying a bundle. Folks say she came through the old creek bed." Mara's heart skipped. She shrank back, clutching Caleb tighter. May's voice stayed even. "You know how stories grow, deputy. No lost girls here. Only me and a sick lamb in the barn." Wade nodded, though his eyes lingered on Mara's boots near the hearth, still streaked with last night's mud. "You let the sheriff know if you see anyone, you hear?" May closed the door before he finished. The latch clicked. She stood there a moment, head bowed. Then she came back to the fire, her jaw clenched. "Law's not always a friend out here," she said, voice low. "Don't open for anyone unless I say, and keep your things packed just in case." Mara nodded, eyes stinging. She watched as May knelt, set another log on the fire, and tended Caleb with a mother's care, though neither of them said the word. Outside, the wind shifted. Hoofbeats sounded, first near, then fading off toward the river road. The house settled again into quiet. May touched Mara's shoulder, gentle but sure. "You stay put. I'll fix us something to eat. After, we see if the fever breaks. If it don't, we ride." Mara squeezed her brother's tiny hand, hope sharp as hunger in her belly. She didn't know what came next, but in that small, warm kitchen, she let herself believe, just for a moment, that they might have a place to rest, and that out here was more than most could hope for. Night fell hard over sagebrush flats, the kind of darkness that blotted out the ridgeline and left only the orange eye of the ranch house window, staring into the prairie. Inside, the warmth from the fire did little to chase the chill from Mara's bones. Caleb's fever still raged, his skin hot as a griddle, his breaths coming fast and shallow. Every hour that passed, she felt the grip of worry tighten, fear threading through her like the wind that rattled the old pains. May sat by the window, her back straight as a fence post, Winchester propped across her knees. She watched the yard the way old ranchers watched a herd, waiting for something to move that shouldn't. Mara, perched on the edge of a battered settee, dabbed Caleb's brow with a bit of cool water, counting each breath as though her own life depended on it. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying the dry scent of sage and the distant promise of rain. Somewhere across the dark, a horse nickered. Mara glanced at May, who didn't move, eyes still trained on the shifting shadows beyond the glass. The hours stretched long. The tick of an old mantel clock kept the only rhythm, slow and patient. Caleb coughed, a wet, ragged sound. Mara hushed him, rocking gently. "Easy, little one, I got you. I ain't letting go." Her words sounded hollow, lost in the space between hope and helplessness. Then, just past midnight, a second knock came at the door. Not urgent, measured, almost polite. May stood up, slow and deliberate, leveling the rifle at the wood. "Who's there?" she called, her voice steady as a riverstone. A pause, then a low answer. "Deputy Sloan, ma'am. Sheriff wants a word." May's jaw flexed, but she slid the bolt and opened the door a crack. Wade Sloan stood there, hat in hand, face half lit by the lantern he held out before him. Behind him, shadows stretched long across the porch. One of them, Mara realized, belonged to someone still astride a horse, face hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat. "Evening, Deputy," May said, all steel and courtesy. Wade nodded. "Just making sure you're all right. Been reports of trouble. Folks say someone's out here, looking for help." May shrugged. "Nothing here but the wind and a sick calf. You can see for yourself." Wade's eyes flicked to Mara, then to the bundle in her arms. He hesitated, then tipped his hat, almost apologetic. "We'll be back around come daylight, Miss Whitlow. Sheriff's orders." The man on horseback shifted, boots creaking against the porch rail. Mara met his gaze. Ice blue eyes, hard as winter creek water. She looked away, pulse racing. Wade turned, lantern casting wild shadows as he stepped down. The other man stayed, studying the house. His voice, when it came, was soft, but sharp as a thorn. "You tell Clara's girl, she can't run forever. Folks out here, they remember who owes what." May didn't answer. The door swung shut, bolt sliding home. Inside, silence pressed, heavy. Mara's hands shook. Who was that? May's face was set. "Silas Creed's man. Bad blood, far as I know. Sheriff Mulroy's in his pocket. That's why I keep the rifle loaded, girl." Mara nodded, feeling the room close around her. She checked on Caleb, burning hot, eyes fluttering. Each minute they lingered, the walls seemed thinner. May moved to the fire, throwing another log onto the embers. "We leave before dawn. Doctor's the only hope now. Pack light, no talking, no trail." Mara gathered her few things. A comb, a strip of her mama's scarf, the battered baby blanket. May handed her a flask of water and a heel of bread. "You ride with Caleb. I'll take the lead." A sudden noise outside, a horse snorting, then a slow crunch of boots on gravel. Mara's breath caught. Through a slit in the curtain, she saw the blue-eyed man watching the window, mouth drawn in a cold half-smile. He tapped the brim of his hat, then turned away, melting into the dark. May closed the curtain. "Some men never forget a grudge. You keep your head down, you hear?" Mara nodded. The fire snapped, shadows jumping along the wall. She pressed her lips to Caleb's burning cheek and closed her eyes. For the first time since her mama died, Mara felt the old ache of wanting to run, but there was nowhere to go, not anymore. She'd promised. "I ain't leaving you," she whispered, more to herself than to the boy. Behind her, May stoked the fire, watching the windows. Outside, the wind screamed like a lost thing in the night. By morning, they would be on the trail, riding for Caleb's life and maybe their own. May woke Mara while the sky was still the color of coal dust. Her whisper, a soft command. "Up, girl, it's time." Mara jolted, clutching Caleb close. He felt lighter than the night before, fever burning in his cheeks. Small fist tangled in her shirt. For a second, Mara thought of her mother's hands, rough, kind, always moving. "Get up, honey. You run if I tell you. Don't you wait for nobody." May moved through the house in practiced silence, gathering supplies. A battered canteen, cold biscuits wrapped in brown paper, a scrap of lye soap tucked in a tin. She checked her rifle, slipped extra shells into her coat pocket, and glanced out the window, always watching the horizon. The world outside the glass was fogged in silver, the last stars clinging to the east. The wind had died down, leaving the sagebrush standing stiff and silent. "Wrap him good," May murmured, passing Mara a folded blanket. "We ride light and fast. If you see dust on the horizon, you keep low, you hear me?" Mara nodded, pressing her lips to Caleb's temple. He whimpered, but didn't wake. Outside, the horses waited, stamping impatient in the blue dark. May saddled the bigger roan for herself, hoisting Mara and the baby up onto the smaller gray. The saddle creaked under the new weight. May tied a rope around Mara's waist, securing her to the horn. "You fall, you take the saddle with you, don't let go." Mara nodded, swallowing the ache in her throat. She looked back at the ranch house, warm yellow light glowing from the window, the battered coffee tin still swinging from the porch beam. For a moment she wished she could stay forever, the way a person dreams of summer in the depth of winter. Then May swung up behind her and the spell broke. They rode east, away from Sagebrush Flats, and into the broken shadows of Badger Gully. The land dropped suddenly, folding into rocky cuts and gullies scarred by old floods. Brush scraped the horses' flanks. Cold dew stung Mara's face. The only sound was the hollow thud of hooves and the quick, thin breaths of her brother against her neck. May led the way, guiding her horse down the narrow trail, eyes always scanning. In the silence, Mara felt the closeness of fear, the kind that wraps around your ribs and won't let go. She kept her head down, tucking Caleb under her coat, whispering what comfort she could. Halfway down the gully, a rock skittered loose, sending the gray stumbling. Mara clutched Caleb, heart hammering as they slid a few feet before the horse found its footing again. May was beside her in an instant, hand on the bridle, steady as stone. "Easy," she whispered, more to Mara than the horse. "You're all right. Hold tight." They pressed on, following the dry wash, ducking beneath twisted cottonwoods and the long arms of willow branches. In the dim light, the world felt more dream than real. Mara's muscles ached, but she didn't complain. Every so often Caleb whimpered, and she'd hush him, pressing the back of her hand to his brow. Still hot, still burning. As dawn crept in, painting the sky with pale orange, they came to a stand of trees near the river's edge. May called a halt, signaling for silence. She listened, head cocked, and Mara did the same. There, off in the distance, the faint sound of a horse, a single set of hooves, moving careful along the trail. Not the wind, not a deer, someone following. May motioned Mara down from the horse and crouched beside her, rifle balanced on her knee. "We rest here. Keep quiet." They huddled in the shadow of the trees. Mara pressed Caleb close, wrapping him in both arms. He was shivering now, his lips dry, breath shallow. "He's worse," Mara whispered. May's face was grim. "Copper Bend's still hours off. You hold him. I'll watch." Time stretched. The sun rose slow, burning off the last of the mist. Mara dabbed Caleb's forehead with a bit of water, wishing she could trade her own heartbeat for his strength. Her arms ached from holding him so long. She whispered to him, "Don't let go, Caleb." "Mama said to keep you safe." A gunshot cracked through the morning, sharp and close. Both women froze. May's eyes darted to the ridge above, jaw clenched. That's not just a warning, that's a message. Another shot, this one farther, off. Then silence. Mara's breath caught. "Are they after us?" May's voice was quiet but hard. "They're after something. Maybe us, maybe not, but we can't wait to find out." She helped Mara back into the saddle, securing Caleb against her chest. "We move. Don't look back." They rode fast, hooves pounding through the brush, the world flying past in a blur of dust and wind. Mara's teeth rattled with every step. Caleb's head lolled, heavy and limp. They crested the last ridge before Copper Bend, just as the sun burned through the clouds. The town shimmered in the distance, a scatter of rooftops and the crooked spire of the church. Mara's heart leapt. Hope and fear tangled so tight she couldn't tell one from the other. But as they neared the edge of town, May slowed, pulling the horses into a narrow alley behind the doctor's office. She slid off, then helped Mara down, cradling Caleb with a gentleness that seemed to surprise even her. "We're here," May said, voice rough. "Let's get that boy seen to." Inside, the smell of carbolic and old sweat hit Mara first. Dr. Amos Talbot, hair wild, sleeves rolled, met them at the door, eyes wide at the sight of the baby. "He's burning," Mara blurted, the words tumbling out. "He won't wake up." Talbot's hands were quick but careful. He ushered them into the dim office, lay Caleb on a narrow cot, and pressed a hand to the boy's chest. "Fever's bad, but you ain't too late," he murmured. May stood beside Mara, a silent pillar. Outside hoofbeats sounded again, stopping just beyond the window. May's eyes narrowed. "Whoever's after you," Talbot said, voice low, "you best keep your heads down. Law's fickle in these parts, and not all friends wear a badge." Mara nodded, clutching May's hand, her own trembling. The doctor handed her a mug of water. "Let the boy rest. I'll mix up something to help." For a moment, Mara allowed herself to breathe. The doctor moved about the room, the clink of bottles and the hiss of a kettle grounding her in the here and now. But then, outside the window, a face appeared, hard, familiar, blue eyes like knives. The man tipped his hat, a silent promise. Mara's breath turned to ice. Inside, the baby's fever broke just enough for a shuddering sigh. May squeezed Mara's shoulder. "We're not done running yet, but for now, you hold him tight. You keep your promise." The sun climbed higher, painting the walls gold. But in Mara's heart, the cold lingered, waiting for the next move, the next threat. They'd made it to Copper Bend. But safety was still just another word for something they'd have to fight for. Come sundown. In the heart of Copper Bend, the day stretched hot and dust thick. The main street, a river of sunlight, poured between wooden storefronts and the painted sign of the Blue Hen Saloon. Mara sat in the shadowed corner of Dr. Talbot's cramped office, Caleb's feverish weight heavy in her arms. She watched the old man work, spectacles slipping low, hands moving with the careful speed of someone who'd seen too much death to trust luck alone. May paced near the window, eyes never still. Her voice was little more than a whisper. "Will he make it, Doc?" Talbot didn't look up. "If the fever holds, maybe. If it breaks, maybe better. Ain't nothing certain, Miss Whitlow, but I seen worse come through. He's a tough little cuss." Mara nodded, though her heart twisted. She rocked Caleb, humming some ragged tune that made him quiet, though not easy. A sharp knock rattled the glass. May's hand went to the Winchester propped beside the door. Dr. Talbot's face pinched with worry. He peeked through the lace curtain, then turned back, voice tight. "Sheriff!" The door opened without invitation. Sheriff Deke Mulroy stepped inside, boots leaving lines in the dust, badge dull with age but shining in the patchy light. Behind him, Deputy Wade Sloan hovered, a clean-shaven face with nervous eyes that never quite settled. Mulroy's gaze swept the room, settling on Mara and the bundle in her lap. "Mornin', Doc. Heard you got visitors." Talbot coughed. "Boy's feverish, could use peace more than questions." "Law's got its own troubles," the sheriff replied, slow as syrup. He nodded at May. "Heard you took in strays again, Miss Whitlow. That true?" May met his stare with the flat iron calm she wore like an old coat. "Folks get lost. I got shelter, that's all." Mulroy eyed Mara, then shifted focus to the battered satchel at her feet. "What's in the bag, girl?" Mara's hands tightened on the strap. She felt May step a little closer, the air thickening. "Just a blanket, sir. Old letters." My mama's things? Deputy Wade shifted, voice lower, almost gentle. We heard tell of a stolen ledger, miss. Creed outfit wants it back. Been talk that a Quinn girl came through with something worth trouble. May's knuckles whitened on the rifle. This is a sick child and a runaway. You looking for a fight or just a story? Sheriff Mulroy stared a moment longer. Then he pulled a folded sheet from his vest. A wanted poster. The ink showed the rough sketch of a girl with dark hair, and a squint, a reward scrawled beneath. He slapped it on the table. I ain't here for trouble, Miss Whitlow. Creed pays well for what's his. Don't care for nobody to get hurt, but I won't stand in the way if they do. He nodded at Dr. Talbot. You patch up the boy. If he's well enough to ride by sundown, I want 'em both gone. Else Creed men'll be at your door by morning. He turned, boots heavy on the wood deputy. Wade lingering. The young man met Mara's eyes, a flicker of something uncertain there. You listen close, miss, he murmured, barely louder than breath. Not all badges mean the same thing. He slipped out after the sheriff. Dr. Talbot shut the door, locking it, then let out a long, shaky breath. May exhaled, all the fight leaving her shoulders. She crouched by Mara. You all right? Mara nodded, clutching Caleb tighter. His skin was slick, breath still rough. She looked at the wanted poster on the table, her own face staring back, a stranger's name and price beneath. Talbot knelt, passing Mara a small cup of boiled milk. Sip this to him, slow, keep his head up. Mara did as told, voice low and steady. You drink, Caleb. You got to stay with me, Mama said, stick together. The boy stirred, his eyelids fluttering. May stood peering out the window. Down the street, men leaned in the shade of the saloon, hats pulled low, watching every movement. She turned back, her voice edged with warning. We won't have much time. Soon as he's steady, we ride. Talbot bustled around the room, mixing herbs, packing a small satchel for the road. Creed, don't forget, Miss Whitlow. Be careful which shadows you trust. Outside, the clang of a blacksmith's hammer rang through the morning. Mara stared at the poster, her name drawn in lines she barely recognized. The doctor handed her a wet cloth for Caleb's brow. He'll pull through if luck's with us, Talbot said. May set her jaw. We don't ride on luck, we ride on grit. Just then, another knock, softer, hurried. May lifted the rifle, eyes hard. Dr. Talbot opened the door a crack, letting in a waft of sunlight and the sharp scent of horses. A woman stood there, gray hair plaited down her back, arms strong and hands calloused. They're gathering at the livery, Miss Whitlow, she warned. Creed's got his men stacked up like cordwood. If you want out, you go now. May nodded once. Thank you, Ruby. She helped Mara to her feet. Wrap the boy tight. We're leaving by the back. Doc, I owe you. Talbot just shook his head, eyes sad. You stay alive. That's thanks enough. Mara wrapped Caleb close, his breathing softer now. May cracked the door, scanning the alley. Sunlight glinted off the badge pinned to Mulroy's chest down the street. Deputy Wade lingered at the edge of the alley, watching, but didn't call out. May took Mara's hand. Run, if I say, don't look back. They slipped into the daylight, pressed to the wall, moving quick and quiet toward the narrow lane behind the Blue Hen Saloon. The noise of the town faded behind them, the world narrowing to the slap of boots on hardpan and the shallow, stubborn breath of a sick child. Behind them, Copper Bend watched and waited, dust rising, the law as thin and brittle as a worn-out promise. Ahead, the road stretched into wild country, toward hope, toward danger, and the next, shadow waiting in the sun. The alley behind the Blue Hen Saloon was thick with flies and the sour scent of old beer, shadows stitched across the dirt by a row of warped barrels. Mara gripped Caleb to her chest, feeling the heat of his fever even through 2 layers of blanket. May moved ahead, face set, rifle low, steps silent as a cat in dust. Behind them, the doctor's window slammed shut, a small mercy and a signal both. They slipped along the narrow back lane, hearts knocking in time with their boots. Every breath Mara took tasted of copper and fear. She could feel the town's eyes at her back, the knowledge that anyone could turn, shout, point a finger. Anyone could buy or sell safety here. May paused at the corner, peeking around. "Wait," she breathed, voice low. "Let 'em pass." Two men in Creed's colors ambled down the main street, pistols loose on their hips, spitting into the dirt and talking about nothing. Their laughter rattled the glass in the saloon window. Mara watched them, her stomach twisting. The taller one, all black hat and gold tooth, glanced down the alley, then moved on. Caleb whimpered, voice no louder than a cricket. Mara kissed his head, whispering, "You're all right." "You hold on, little brother. Just hold on." May gave the all clear with a flick of her fingers. They slipped out, crossing behind the livery and ducking into an empty side yard where the weeds grew waist-high and the fence leaned toward the horizon, like it was tired of the whole business of standing. Inside the Blue Hen, piano music thumped through the walls, a slow, sad tune about lost love and empty pockets. Mara listened a second, letting the sound ground her. Music meant civilization, a reminder that life moved on, even as she ran for hers. Suddenly, a figure detached from the shadows. A man, tall, black duster, hat pulled so low, only the cut of his jaw and the glint of his eyes showed. Silas Creed. He leaned against a rain barrel, arms folded, smile cold and lazy. "Well now, Miss Whitlow, always did like your stubbornness. Didn't expect you to drag a kid into your mess, though." May stepped between him and Mara, her body blocking the way forward. "This isn't your business, Creed. We're not here for trouble." Silas tisked, shaking his head slow. "Ain't about trouble, May. It's about what belongs to me. You give me that daybook, and the little one goes free. Otherwise—" He shrugged, the gesture as smooth as the silk band around his hat. Mara's blood turned to ice. Her hand clutched the cloth bundle at her side. The ledger, her mama's last secret, stitched into the lining. She saw Creed's eyes flick to her, reading everything she tried to hide. "Give the daybook, kid. I'll let the babe breathe easy." His voice was smooth, reasonable, but the threat lived in every syllable. May didn't move. Her voice was iron. "You want something from us? You'll have to take it." Silas's eyes narrowed, and for a second, Mara thought he might draw. Instead, a gunshot cracked from the shadows, a bullet tearing splinters from the saloon siding just above Silas's ear. Chaos erupted. Creed's men ducked, a glass shattered, someone screamed inside the bar. May grabbed Mara's arm. "Go, now!" They bolted down the alley, boots slipping in mud, the cries of men and the scuffle of drawn guns echoing behind them. Mara ran hard, clutching Caleb close, the world blurring in sweat and sunlight. The ledger bounced in her bag, heavier than any stone. They turned down a side street, breath coming ragged. Mara looked back. Creed's men fanned out, searching, yelling, pointing. One fired into the air, another curse, but the alley was empty. May led Mara and Caleb into a narrow breezeway between the blacksmith's and the grain store. She pressed them into the shadows, covering the boy with her own body. For a moment, everything was noise. Guns, shouts, the slam of doors. Then suddenly, a hush. May peered out, the street cleared, Creed's men running after some other ghost. She let out a slow breath. "Someone out there's got their own reasons to help us," she whispered, "but that don't mean we're safe." Caleb moaned, a weak cry that faded almost as soon as it began. Mara cradled him, brushing damp hair from his brow. "He's hotter, May. I don't know what to do." "We keep moving," May said. "There's a chapel out by Dry Willow Creek. Someone there'll know herbs. No healing." Mara nodded, her throat tight. She looked down at her baby brother, his cheeks flushed, lips dry, eyes moving restlessly under the skin. She wondered, not for the first time, if hope was just another kind of lie. May checked the street one last time, then pulled Mara to her feet. "Stick close. We head for the creek. If you see riders, you duck low. Don't wait for me. Don't stop." They slipped away, past the Blue Hen, past the stares and whispers of Copper Bend. Behind them, Silas Creed's cold eyes watched from the dark, calculating, patient as a snake in the grass. Out beyond town, as the sun burned away the last of the morning fog, Mara felt the promise she'd made to her mother, the promise not to leave, not to let go, etched deep in her bones. And as they crossed the bridge toward Dry Willow, the sound of hooves behind them was both a threat and a prayer. Run, but don't run alone. Never let go. The land changed as they rode out of Copper Bend. Sage thinning, cottonwoods crowding along a trickle of water that cut through bone-dry earth. Mara's arms ached from holding Caleb, her back stiff from too many hours on the run. May led the way, silent but quick, scanning every stand of willow, every flutter of birds in the brush. They followed the creek until a white-painted chapel appeared, half sunk behind tangled roses and a leaning bell tower. May knocked twice at the back door, sharp and certain. After a moment, a woman answered, a tall, sturdy figure in a gray dress, hair twisted under a faded blue kerchief. Her eyes were sharp as cut glass. "Mercy Cole," May said. "We need help." Sister Mercy stepped aside without a word, waving them in. Inside, the chapel was cool, dim, the smell of old candles and lavender thick in the air. Wooden benches lined the walls. At the far end, a rough-hewn altar caught what little morning light made it through stained glass. Tilly Hart, a girl no older than Mara, swept the floor, bare feet quick on stone. She eyed them with curiosity, then melted into the shadows. May laid Caleb on a clean pallet beside the stove. Sister Mercy knelt, gentle but efficient, unwrapping blankets, checking his pulse. "Fever's high," she muttered, "but I've seen boys sicker come through." "Tilly, fetch the willow bark and feverfew." Tilly darted off, returning moments later with jars and cloths. Mercy brewed a strong-smelling tea, cooling it with spoonfuls of spring water, then coaxed a few drops between Caleb's lips. Mara hovered close, holding her brother's tiny hand, heart squeezed tight by hope and dread. "Who sent you?" Mercy asked, never stopping her work. May hesitated. "No one. Trouble found us. Creed Outfits got the law in its pocket. This girl's got something they want, and they're hunting her hard." Mercy's hand stilled, just a breath. She looked at Mara, gaze steady. "What's in your bag, child?" Mara swallowed, fingers tracing the rough edge of the ledger hidden deep in the lining. "Just papers, my mama's. They say it's worth something to the wrong folks." Mercy studied her a long moment. Then she nodded, tucking the tea blanket tight around Caleb. "Some things are worth more than gold, and twice as dangerous. You keep it close." Tilly brought a fresh cloth, dabbing Caleb's brow. "He's tough. Most kids that sick just cry or quit. He's hanging on. Same as his sister," May said quietly. They sat together as the light shifted. The chapel hushed, except for the ticking stove and the hum of bees at the open window. Mara listened to the sound, letting it fill the cracks inside her, where fear liked to hide. For the first time since she started running, she felt the faint warmth of safety, thin, fragile, but real. Sister Mercy ladled out bowls of thin broth, bread torn in thick hunks, salted butter soft from the stove. Mara ate slowly, every bite, grounding her to the here and now. Tilly watched from the corner, sharp-eyed and clever. "You bringing trouble or running from it?" she asked, voice no louder than a secret. Mara met her gaze. "Both, I reckon." Tilly nodded as if that was answer enough. Later, as the sun drifted west, Mercy checked Caleb again. "Fever's down a shade. Let him sleep. If he makes it to morning, he might just turn the corner." Mara sat beside her brother, hand resting on his chest, feeling every shallow breath. May stood near the window, watching the lane. The day outside quieted, the kind of hush that falls before a storm. Tilly slipped over, voice soft. "Creed men left coin at the livery. Said there's a price for your heads. They'll be here by first light, I bet." Mara's heart lurched. She looked to May, who was already packing what little they had. "We won't make it on foot," May said. Mercy considered, then nodded. "There's an old trail behind the chapel, leads up to the ridge. F. Cutter knows it better than any. He'll come by at dusk to check my garden. I'll send him with you." Mara squeezed her hand. "Thank you, ma'am." Mercy only smiled, weary but kind. This place sees its share of lost souls. Some find what they need, some just need a place to rest. Outside, the first shadow of night crept up the creek bed. Mara pulled the ledger from her bag, holding it for a moment, feeling its weight. She thought of her mother, of the promise she'd made, of the road still ahead. As darkness gathered, a bell rang softly above the door. Mara stiffened, but it was only F. Cutter, broad-shouldered, gray as fence post, eyes as sharp as old nails. He stepped inside, hat in hand. "You the ones need a guide?" he asked, voice gentle as river mud. May nodded. "We ride at dusk." F. looked at Mara and Caleb, then at Mercy. "You picked a hard road, girl. Lucky for you, I know all the rough ones." Mara mustered a shaky smile. "We don't need easy, sir. Just a way through." F. winked. "Then you came to the right sinner." As the last light faded, Mara watched Caleb sleep, hope a quiet ember in her chest. The road out was uncertain, the night full of teeth, but inside those chapel walls, she believed, for one more hour, that promises could still be kept. Dusk fell on Dry Willow Creek like a slow breath, cooling the dust and softening the bite of day. The chapel glowed with the orange warmth of lamplight. F. Cutter stood by the back door, rolling a cigarette with slow fingers, boots planted wide, as if he was grown from the ground itself. Mara, with Caleb bundled tight to her chest, watched his every move, the way he tested the wind, checked the girth on a tired bay, his hands sure despite the years carved in his knuckles. May finished tying off a small bundle of bread and cheese, wrapped in oilcloth. "He's resting," she said, meaning Caleb, but her eyes lingered on Mara. "You ready?" Mara nodded. She could feel her brother's fever easing, his breaths coming easier, small and even. She hadn't dared hope it would last, but for now it was enough. Tilly, already perched on the chapel fence, dangled her bare feet, eyes bright in the dusk. "F knows every wash and gully from here to Larkspur. He once rode through a blizzard with nothing but a broken lantern and a promise he made to a dying friend." F grunted, but a smile tugged at the edge of his mouth. "Ain't as good as legend says, but I ain't dead yet. Miss Whitlow, you ride behind me. Mara, keep the boy close. Tilly, you—" "I'm staying with Mercy," Tilly cut in, but she pressed something into Mara's hand, a button, smooth as river rock. "For luck," she said, then winked. "Don't lose it." Inside, Sister Mercy finished checking Caleb's forehead. "You'll need water at the arroyo. Stay off the ridgeline till you see the cottonwoods. And trust old F if he says to ride hard." May thanked her in that low way of the plains, a silent meeting of eyes, a handshake that squeezed more meaning than any prayer. The first owl called from the far side of the creek. F swung up in the saddle with a grunt, checked his rifle, then nodded. "Let's get." They rode single file, hooves muffled on soft earth, breath held against the waiting dark. Mara held Caleb to her, heart thumping. She tried not to think of the road behind, or the weight of the ledger stitched in her pack. Her mother's voice drifted with the wind. "Don't quit! Don't run scared!" The land grew wild. Cottonwoods gnarled and silver, sagebrush painting the air with sharp scent. Somewhere behind them, Copper Bend's lanterns flickered like a distant memory. F led them off the main trail down a goat path cut through brush. "Folks watching the roads tonight," he said, voice barely more than a rumble. "Creed men ride loud, but they ain't the only ones hunting shadows." May rode behind Mara, one eye on the rear. F never hurried, but his eyes never stopped moving. "How'd you come to carry all this?" he asked, not unkind. Mara's answer was simple. "Mama said, find May. She said, don't let Caleb go." F nodded. "You keep a promise, you get to keep your name." The group moved in silence until the stars thickened, pressing low and close. Every snap of twig sounded like a shot. At the arroyo, they stopped to water the horses, filling canteens from the slow trickle at the bottom. May helped Mara dip a rag, sponging Caleb's cheeks. "He's cooler," May whispered. "Way you did right, girl." F scouted ahead, returning with the all clear, but just as they mounted up, the faint ring of a bell echoed over the flats. The warning from Mercy's chapel, 3 short peals, Tilly's code. "They're coming," May hissed. "Fast." F's voice turned steel. "Ride, don't look back." Hoofbeats thundered behind them, shadows stretching long. Mara held Caleb tight as the wind whipped tears from her eyes. F led them through a tangle of willows, up a dry wash choked with tumbleweed, every turn eating up ground between them and Creed's men. A shot rang out, crackling off stone. Mara ducked. May spurred her horse alongside, shielding Mara with her own body. "Keep low." They burst from the arroyo into open land, F wheeling to fire a warning shot over their pursuers' heads. "That'll slow 'em, but not for long," he shouted. "Head for Larkspur, Briggs Press. Nell'll know what to do." The group split the darkness, pounding through sage and dust. Caleb whimpered once, then went silent. Mara checked his face, saw his eyes open, tired but alive. At the edge of the cottonwoods, F drew up, chest heaving. He passed Mara a small leather pouch, heavy in her palm. "Keep this. If I don't make it, give it to Nell Briggs. She'll print your truth." Mara nodded, throat tight. "You coming with us?" F looked down the black line of the trail, face half lit by moonlight. "Old bones can still dance, kid, but not as long as they used to. Go on. I'll cover your backs." He wheeled his horse and disappeared into the night, rifle at the ready. Behind, gunshots flashed, sharp, angry, and desperate. May grabbed Mara's hand, pulling her forward. "Don't stop, not for anything." They raced for Larkspur Crossing, the sound of the chase fading behind them, F's promise echoing on the wind. In Mara's hand, the button Tilly had given her felt warm and real, one small piece of luck to carry through the dark. By dawn, the town's red brick stood out against the gold of the prairie. Mara looked back only once, just in time to see the last star vanish into morning. Larkspur Crossing woke slow, light glinting off rows of red brick storefronts in the ironwork of the old rail bridge. The Briggs Press sat back from the street, its windows clouded with years of dust and ink. May and Mara slid from their horses, legs trembling, Mara clutching Caleb. Heavier now, breath steady, fever cooling, the fear in her chest eased, but only just. May rapped at the press door, the sound sharp in the morning hush. Nell Briggs answered, a tall, broad-shouldered woman in a black apron, hands stained blue with ink, hair tied back in a rough knot. Her eyes scanned them, reading trouble before a word was spoken. May wasted no time. F sent us. Creed's men not far behind. Nell let them in, bolting the door, eyes flicking to Mara and the boy. You picked a rough trail to my door. She pointed toward a battered couch, by the presses. Rest the little one. You need hands more than words now. Inside, the print shop was a kingdom of iron and paper, cases of type stacked high, sheets fluttering in the draft, the smell of oil and old stories lingering in every corner. Mara laid Caleb down, brushing a curl from his brow. He stirred, his lips parting in a soft sigh. She'd never known relief like that moment, a promise kept if only for now. May paced by the window, eyes sharp. They'll be here by noon, likely sooner. Nell set a kettle to boil, her movements quick. Then let's see what bought you this trouble. She held out a hand, palm open and honest. Mara reached into her satchel, fingers trembling, and passed over the bundle her mother had sewn and re-sewn. Nell unwrapped it slow, the paper crackling. She skimmed the ledger's pages, names, numbers, secrets lined up like dominoes, enough to topple any man who built his power on lies. A slow whistle escaped Nell's lips. "This here's dynamite," she muttered, "and you carried it across hell." She touched Mara's shoulder, a kindness heavy as a stone. "You did right, girl. Now it's our turn." The morning stretched thin. May took up a post at the back door, Winchester in hand. Mara helped Nell set the presses, casting type, locking in the plates, feeding pages. Each thunk of the old press was a heartbeat. Nell worked fast, muscle memory and purpose, turning ink into truth. Caleb slept beside the ink table, cheeks flushed but peaceful. The first time in days Mara let herself believe he might survive. In the hush between press runs, Nell handed her a cup of black coffee, so strong it near shook her teeth loose. "Grit's what keeps a soul upright," Nell said, voice rough. "You got it, and so did your mama." Time tightened. At noon, hoofbeats hammered the road. Nell's sharp glance sent Mara scrambling to the back, clutching Caleb and the proofed sheets of the ledger's contents. May braced the door, breath shallow. The front windows shattered, glass falling like ice in the street. Sheriff Mulroy's voice thundered, "By the law." But Nell just wiped her hands on her apron, stepping out into the shop. Deputy Wade followed, gun drawn, eyes darting everywhere but at Mara. Mulroy waved a paper. Creed's warrant, heavy with ink and menace. "Hand it over, Nell. You're obstructing justice." Nell's chin lifted, unbowed. "Whose justice, Sheriff? Yours or Creed's?" Mulroy's mouth twisted, but he didn't answer. His hand shook on the grip of his pistol. Behind him, Creed's men crowded the porch, faces half hidden beneath wide hats, fingers twitching near holsters. May called from the back, voice like the crack of a whip. "Don't you come any closer. I've got a sick child in here and nothing left to lose." Wade hesitated, eyes falling on Mara, on the baby in her arms, on the fear and steel in her face. For a second, something human flashed in him. He stepped in front of Mulroy, lowering his weapon just enough. "Let 'em be, Deke. You want blood, you spill it yourself." A silence deeper than any grave filled the shop. Then with a roar, Mulroy shoved Wade aside, storming toward the press. Nell stood firm. In that heartbeat, the world broke loose. Creed's men surged. May fired through the back window. A bottle of lamp oil toppled, flames licking the edge of the press. Paper and ink fed the fire, smoke curling to the rafters. Nell shoved a bundle of plates, fresh printed sheets, into Mara's arms. "Run, girl, take it to the world. Print it in hell if you have to." Mara fled out the side door, May on her heels. Caleb held tight to her chest. Behind them, gunfire cracked, the smell of burning ink thick and acrid. Nell's laughter rang wild and hard, echoing in the smoke, defiant to the end. May dragged Mara through the alley, hearts pounding. They ducked behind rain barrels, tears streaming from smoke and fear. The town behind them screamed with chaos, law and outlaw tangled together, truth burning brighter than any badge. Only when they reached the edge of the tracks did Mara look back. Flames licked the sky. Nell's press, her kingdom, was burning, but her words would not be lost. Mara pressed Caleb to her heart, sheets trembling in her hand, May steady at her side. "Where now?" Mara asked, voice raw. May wiped a streak of ash from her cheek. "We find what's left of F. We keep running. We don't let go." For the first time, Mara believed they just might make it, even with hell at their heels. Smoke twisted up over Larkspur Crossing, black as crows' wings, drifting east on the prairie wind. Mara ran with Caleb pressed to her chest, her breath hitching between sobs and the taste of ash. May guided her through the tight alleyways behind the press, boots pounding, every muscle tensed for the sound of pursuit. The heat of the burning shop followed them, the crackle and pop of fire eating at the bones of Nell's old kingdom. Behind them, gunfire snapped, a bullet splitting the rain barrel beside Mara, showering. Her in muddy water. May spun, raised the Winchester, and fired back, the report echoing off brick and tin. Mara didn't stop running. She could feel the bundle of plates and printed pages. Nell had pressed into her arms the words that might save or doom them. Caleb whimpered against her neck, breath hot, but he was still breathing. That was enough. They cut through a backyard, leapt a sagging fence, and darted down a side lane choked with wild sunflowers. The noise of the fire faded, replaced by the hammering of her own heart. May's voice cut through the chaos. "Keep low, Mara!" Almost there, they reached the edge of town, crouching behind a fallen cottonwood. The world outside was nothing but grass, wind, and the promise of escape. May checked her rifle, eyes scanning the horizon. "You hurt?" she asked. Mara shook her head, though her arm burned. A bullet had clipped her shoulder, blood soaking into her sleeve. "I'm fine," she lied, "just tired." May ripped a strip of fabric from her own shirt, pressing it hard against Mara's wound. "Hold that. Don't let go. You did good in there, kid." Mara nodded, teeth gritted against the pain. She glanced down at the pages in her lap. Names, numbers, proof of everything Creed's men had tried to bury. For the first time she saw her mother's handwriting, steady and sharp, in the margins. "Print the truth and let the wind deliver." Hoofbeats thundered on the street behind them. Mara tensed, ready to run again, but May yanked her down, breath harsh. Sheriff Mulroy and his men rode past, faces streaked with soot, eyes wild. The law had turned to smoke. May waited until they passed, then nodded to Mara. Time to move. They made for the far edge of Larkspur, cutting across the back of the rail yard, past empty boxcars and the sweet, sour scent of spilled molasses. Mara's shoulder throbbed with every step. Caleb slept, his face slack but peaceful. They found a stand of willows at the riverbank, hidden from the town, the fire, the men who wanted them dead. May knelt, filling a tin cup with cool water, washing Mara's wound as gentle as she could. "You're tougher than you look," she said, voice low. Mara managed a laugh, weak but true. "Mama said I had rocks in my bones." May smiled, a rare thing, but there. She took a deep breath, wiped her hands on her skirt. "We wait here for F. If he doesn't come by sundown, we move on our own. You rest. I'll keep watch." Mara curled around Caleb and the bundle of plates, her eyelids heavy. The pain dulled to a distant throb. In her dreams, she saw Nell's press burning, pages lifting on the wind, drifting like white birds over the prairie. Her mother's voice whispered through the flames, "Don't let go, don't ever let go." A hand shook her awake. May, eyes hard. "Someone's coming." Mara blinked, heart leaping. Through the willows she saw a figure limping toward them, hat low, coat scorched at the line. Hem F. Cutter, rifle slung across his back. He dropped beside them, breath rattling. Creed's men scattered. I slowed 'em best I could. Larkspur's lost, but you... He coughed, spitting blood into the grass. "You gotta keep moving. Take the old river trail. Briggs kept a backup press under the mesa. Wade'll help you. He's done with Creed. May nodded, gripping F's arm. Thank you, old friend. F smiled, pain wrinkling the corners of his eyes. Ain't nothing. I buried enough good folks to know when to make my stand. He pressed a coin into Mara's hand, a silver dollar worn smooth. Luck, he rasped, don't waste it. Before Mara could answer, he leaned back, closing his eyes. The wind carried the last of the smoke away, leaving only silence. May wrapped an arm around Mara's shoulders. We keep going, for them, for us. They set out at dusk, following the river's curve, moving slow but steady, the plates clutched tight, the promise of another press shining ahead, like the last star at night's end. Behind them, Larkspur Crossing burned, a funeral pyre for every lie they'd outrun, but ahead the road was open, the truth still burning in their hands. Night fell sharp and restless on Black Mesa Rim. The Creed house loomed above the horse paddocks, lamps glowing behind heavy curtains, rain spitting off the slate roof. May and Mara crouched in the shadows by the back fence, hearts beating to the rhythm of every distant hoofbeat, every thunderclap that rolled down from the mesa. Caleb slept in a sling tied across Mara's chest, his breath slow, skin cool but clammy. May scanned the compound, riders posted by the main gate, dogs restless by the barn, guards huddled under dripping awnings. The air stank of gun oil, wet leather, and the sour tang of fear. From the shadows behind the tack shed, a low whistle cut through the rain. Gus Ortega, old cowhand, keeper of secrets and stalls. He tipped his hat, gray braid slicked to his collar. Storm's your friend tonight. Watch the north wall, kitchen doors unlatched. Second stair up leads to the nursery. May nodded. Thank you, Gus. He shrugged. No love for Creed here. You move quick, you move quiet. He ducked back into the dark, gone before the next flash of lightning. Mara pressed the silver coin from F, tight in her fist, a cold anchor against the shake in her bones. May squeezed her shoulder, mouth set in a grim line. You remember what I taught you? Mara nodded, eyes shining. If it goes bad, get Caleb out. Find cover. Don't look back. May brushed a thumb across Mara's cheek, soft as a lullaby. You're tougher than you know, girl. They slipped across the muddy yard, boots silent, rain hiding their steps. The kitchen door creaked but gave way, and the warmth of stew and bread and candle smoke wrapped them like a memory of home. Voices drifted from down the hall, cards slapping, men laughing mean. May checked the pistol at her hip and nodded for Mara to follow, quick as a breath. The stair creaked, each step a prayer. On the landing, a lamp flickered behind a half-closed door. Mara pressed herself flat against the wall, heart rattling. May slid past her, cracked the door with a fingertip. Inside, Silas Creed stood at a bassinet, one hand turning the pages of a ledger, the other stroking the curve of a revolver on the table. The lamp lit his face, shadowing his eyes, making him seem more mask than man. He spoke without turning. You're late, Miss Whitlow? May kept her gun at her side. Let the boy go, Silas. He's not part of this. Silas's smile was thin. Everything's part of this, May. You know how it works. Give me the girl, give me the book, and you all walk out with your hearts still beating. Mara felt the burn of tears, the old ache of wanting her mama, wanting to run, but she set Caleb down in the cradle, hands steady. You don't buy what you can't hold, Mr. Creed. Some things won't be sold. Silas turned, reaching for the ledger, gun glinting in his other hand. May fired, a single shot that punched through his coat, spinning him to the wall. Blood splattered the lamp. The fire licking up the curtains. Mara snatched Caleb, cradling him close, backing away as the flames caught. Silas cursed, staggering after them, voice breaking like glass in a hailstorm. You ain't seen the end of me! May grabbed Mara's arm, dragging her through the smoke. The fire roared, swallowing the room, choking the air with heat and fury. Down the back stairs, boots slamming, shadows running in every direction, guards shouting, windows breaking, thunder rolling in time with the gunfire outside. Gus reappeared at the stable door, waving them forward. "Horses saddled! Get gone!" May swung Mara and Caleb onto the nearest mare, vaulted up behind. Gus slapped the horse's flank. "Ride!" They bolted from the yard as Creed's men poured from the house, bullets chasing them through the downpour. The world blurred with rain, gunfire, and the blaze lighting the rim like a signal fire. Behind them the house burned, windows bursting, the old walls collapsing in a shower of sparks. At the edge of the mesa, F. Cutter waited in the dark, rifle ready. He fired a shot into the air, scattering the last of Creed's men from the chase. May reined in, breath ragged. Mara clung to Caleb, rain mixing with tears. Behind them, the flames swallowed Creed's empire, turning it to ash. F. tipped his hat, voice grave. "You get what you came for?" May nodded, eyes shining. "We got what matters." They rode out under the storm, leaving fire and ruin behind, hearts bruised but still beating, and for a moment, just a moment, the world was quiet, except for the soft sound of rain, the steady breath of a sleeping child, and the promise that tonight they'd held on to each other. That, for now, was enough. Dawn crept slow and gray along the rim of Black Mesa, painting the world in silver and bruised blue. The air smelled of wet earth, burnt timber, and the sharp tang of loss. May and Mara huddled together beneath a stand of juniper, Caleb wrapped in Mara's arms, his breath warm against her collarbone. In the half-light, the road ahead forked, one path curling west, the other dropping down into the wide flats toward Larkspur Crossing. F. Cutter crouched nearby, checking the loads in his battered rifle, fingers stiff from the night's cold. His eyes were older than the land, deep as any well, but when he looked at Mara, something gentle flickered there. "We'll have to split," he said. "Creed's boys ain't giving up the chase. They'll come riding hard on our tail." May nodded, jaw tight, rainwater dripping from her hat brim. "Which way?" "I'll take the main trail," F said. "Draw 'em off. Give you a chance to double back with the girl and the boy." Mara's voice shook, but she managed. "F, you can't." He cut her off with a rough smile. "Old bones can still dance, kid. If I fall, I fall, but I won't let 'em catch you easy." Tilly Hart burst from the brush, wild-eyed mud, streaked on her shins. "They're coming. 5 riders, maybe more. Dogs, too." F squeezed Mara's hand, hard, steady. "You listen to May. You get to Nell. Give her the bundle. Tell her it's my word." He limped to his horse, swung up with a groan, and tipped his hat. "You keep that luck close, little miss." Then he kicked his mount hard, riding straight down the trail, shouting, waving his hat. Every inch the decoy, every inch the legend he'd lived long enough to become. May clapped Mara's shoulder. "This way." They ducked into a narrow wash, boots slipping in the loose shale. The sound of pursuit split the morning, dogs barking, men shouting. Mara's heart hammered in her chest, the weight of Caleb in her arms, the bundle of printed pages strapped tight against her ribs. They stumbled through mesquite and sand, the world narrowing to breath and pain and the pounding need to keep going. Tilly led them, quick as a fox, vanishing through a stand of rabbit brush, then reappearing to wave them onward. A shot rang out, distant but close enough to mean danger. May jerked Mara behind a boulder, breath coming in harsh gulps. Caleb whimpered, eyes squeezed tight, his tiny fists grabbing for the world he barely understood. In the hush that followed, Tilly crept back. Her face was pale, but her voice steady. "F's drawing him away, but he won't make it back. I saw him fall." May closed her eyes just a blink, letting the pain wash through. Mara swallowed hard, hot tears on her cheeks. She pressed the silver coin tight in her palm. "We don't leave anyone behind," she whispered. May took her hand. "We carry him in us. That's how it works." They moved again, slower now, legs shaking with fatigue. The sun broke free of the clouds, setting the mesa edge aglow, a promise or a warning or both. The world was open ahead, but the shadows behind grew longer, filled with men who wanted their silence. At last they crested a rise, Larkspur's old brick stacks just visible on the horizon. May squeezed Mara's shoulder, pride in her eyes. "You got the fight in you, don't ever doubt that." They hunkered down, waiting for the night. Mara held Caleb close, listened to the wind, the distant ring of gunshots, the memory of F's voice. "You keep a promise, you keep your name." For the first time, Mara felt the weight of all those who had come before, her mama, Nell, F, every soul who'd stood up when the world said to kneel. She closed her eyes, pressed her cheek to Caleb's hair, and swore, "I ain't leaving. Not ever." And as the last light died behind Black Mesa, Mara knew the road would keep splitting, keep testing her, but she'd keep moving forward, carrying the stories and the hope of all those who couldn't. The moon hung low over Larkspur Crossing, bruised and yellow, shining on broken windows and the last smoldering timbers of Briggs Press. May, Mara, and Tilly slipped down an alley heavy with the smell of old ink and soot. Shadows stretched long. Mara hugged Caleb close, the bundle of printed plates and F's coin warm against her ribs. Her legs shook, but she kept moving, following Tilly, who darted ahead barefoot and sure, into a forgotten corner behind the freight house. Tilly pried up a loose plank, revealing a stone trapdoor sunk into the ground. "Down here," she whispered, voice shaking. May dropped first, landing in a pocket of cool earth and blackness. She reached up for Mara, guiding her as she eased down, careful not to wake the baby. The door thudded shut above them, plunging the world into darkness. Then a lantern flared. Nell Briggs, soot on her face, arm bound with a strip of old sheet. "You made it," she rasped, voice more gravel than ever. "Did you bring it?" Mara nodded, unslinging the satchel, laying the pages and plates in Nell's hands. Nell brushed a thumb over the type, lips trembling. "F?" she asked, already knowing. Tilly's eyes filled with tears. "He drew them off. He didn't come back." Nell lowered her head. "Damn old fool. He always kept his word." The room was small, a cramped chamber of stone and timbers beneath the press, hidden since the railroad wars. Dust coated the shelves, but on a low bench waited a hand press, oil-lamped and ready. Nell got to work, loading type, checking proofs, setting the first sheets. May found an old coffee pot, poured water over grounds, the smell cutting the cold. Mara wrapped Caleb in a blanket sitting beside Tilly. "You did good," Mara whispered. Tilly shook her head. "I just ran. F was the brave one." "Bravery ain't just bullets," May said, her voice low. "It's staying alive, telling what happened." Nell ran the first sheet through the press, the thunk and squeal of rollers echoing like a heartbeat. She held the page up, ink still gleaming, names they buried. Mara traced the line of her mother's handwriting, heart full and aching all at once. A scrape at the stair sent every head spinning. Wade Sloan, eyes dark-rimmed, hat in hand. He closed the door behind him, lowering his pistol. "I ain't here for creed," he said, "not anymore." May stared him down. "Why should we trust you?" He stepped into the lantern's edge, face hard. "I'm tired of being another man's dog. Mulroy's gone. Creed's wounded. The law don't mean nothing if folks like you can't walk free." Nell handed him the first run of sheets. "You give these out at Slate Hollow tomorrow. Don't flinch, Wade. You stand straight." He nodded, shoulders straightening for the first time in years. "I will." The hours ground slow and tense, the press rolling through the night. May stitched up Mara's arm, hands sure words, soft coffee simmered. Caleb slept, his fever broken, his little fists curled against Mara's side. Before dawn, Nell stacked the papers, hands ink-stained and shaking. She poured May a cup. Tomorrow they'll read every name. Truth gets its turn. Creed won't hold this town, not with the light coming. Mara pressed the silver coin into Nell's palm. For luck, she whispered. Nell smiled, tired but true. Print the truth, and let the wind deliver. The world above waited quiet and dark. Mara stroked Caleb's hair, feeling the tremble of the press in the stone floor, the weight of every promise, every sacrifice. The names were ready. The story would be told. In that hush, before the first crow called, Mara whispered to the night, to her mother, to F, to everyone who'd stood by her, "I ain't leaving." Morning broke over Slate Hollow, cold and clear, the light sharp as a blade, casting long shadows across the stone square where the town gathered. Folks filled the plaza, ranch hands in worn hats, mothers holding sleepy children, old-timers who remembered the days before Creed. Newsprint littered the air like a flock of wild doves. Names they buried, ink still wet from Nell's midnight press. Wade Sloan stood in the middle, handing out sheets with a steady hand, jaw set. He met the eyes of every man and woman, daring them to look away from the truth. May, Mara, and Tilly kept to the edge. Caleb cradled in Mara's arms, his weight both anchor and promise. On the makeshift stage, Silas Creed stood tall, one arm in a sling, the other resting easy on the butt of his pistol. Sheriff Mulroy lingered at his side, pale and silent, stripped of the old confidence the badge once gave him. Creed's voice cut the cold like a whip. "You're being lied to," he thundered. "This so-called ledger is a forgery. My name's been slandered, my people threatened. I have given this land my blood." The crowd murmured, papers fluttering. Nell Briggs, soot on her cheek, stepped onto the stage. "I printed every word, every name was written by a mother's hand. You want to talk blood, Silas? Let's talk about the children whose fathers never came home from your mines. The ranchers run off their land, the women who buried truth with their bare hands." Creed sneered, eyes sweeping the crowd. "That's the voice of malcontents, of weaklings. The law stands with me." But Mulroy looked away, shame burning in his eyes. Wade stepped forward, his voice rough. "The law stands with the people, not with a man who buys it." A hush fell. Mara stepped up, holding Caleb for all to see. "My mama died so you'd hear the truth. This—" She held out the battered ledger, her hands steady. "This is her writing, her stitches. You can burn the paper, but you can't burn the names out of your own memory. Some folks buy law. We carry it in our hands." Creed's face twisted. He lunged for the ledger, gun half drawn. May fired. A warning shot into the air, the sound echoing like thunder. The crowd surged, not with rage, but with a deep, silent resolve. Men and women pressed forward, closing ranks around Mara and Caleb, forming a wall no bullet could breach. Nell tossed handfuls of papers into the wind, sheets swirling above the crowd, names spinning free, too many to silence, too many to threaten. Creed tried to shout, tried to command, but his voice was lost in the hush of townsfolk reading names, mothers whispering to daughters, men tearing badges from their chests and laying them at Mulroy's feet, the sound of papers brushing stone, boots shifting in the dust, a single baby's cry. These were the sounds that filled the square as the old world crumbled. May put her arm around Mara, drawing her close. "It's done," she said. "We don't need monuments, just the truth and hands to hold it." The wind swept through Slate Hollow, soft as a prayer, cool as forgiveness. Caleb nestled deeper into Mara's arms. She knelt by the stage, placed her mother's battered coffee tin on the stones and whispered, "I ain't leaving." No applause, no fanfare, just the low hum of lives beginning again. Grown men wept into their hands. Old women pressed handkerchiefs to their mouths. Nell took off her ink-stained apron, handed it to Tilly. "Your turn to print what matters now, girl." The sun lifted, gold and new over the sage. Mara, May, and Tilly turned away from the crowd. Caleb, safe between them, their shadows long and sure on the stones. They walked into the quiet morning, leaving behind the weight of every broken promise, carrying only what was needed: the child, the story, and the memory of those who kept their word. Across the prairie the wind rattled through the grass, carrying names and stories, and the simple oak truth that in the end what mattered most was not who shouted loudest, but who stayed. And that day, with the world made wider by every hard-won name, Mara's promise echoed for all to hear, soft, steady, and unbroken. "I ain't leaving." If this story hit you right in the heart, just drop a 1 or 0 down in the comments. Let me know you're still out there listening. Don't forget to subscribe for more Western tales, where the wind never stops and promises still mean something. Stick around, partner. There's always another story waiting on the next sunrise.